It was a moment that stopped the tennis world cold, not because of an ace or a tiebreak, but because a future king and queen just rewrote the royal playbook right there on center court. Look, I've covered the royals long enough to know that every public appearance is calculated down to the cufflink. But what happened at Wimbledon 2026 felt genuinely different, and if you stick with me, you'll understand why this one appearance sent a message louder than any palace statement ever could. Nobody expected the Princess of Wales to walk in wearing that shade of buttercup yellow, a dress that seemed to catch every photon of that perfect July sun. And within 60 seconds of her sitting down, my phone basically melted from the alerts. Fashion blogs crashed, designers were frantically sketching, and the internet collectively decided that this was the look of the summer. But here's what the cameras almost missed. Right as they took their seats, Prince William leaned over and whispered something that made Kate laugh so genuinely, the kind of laugh where she had to cover her mouth. And in that split second, I realized we were watching something more interesting than a tennis match. We were watching a masterclass in modern monarchy. If you're enjoying this inside look at royal moments that actually matter, hit that subscribe button right now, because I'm the only one breaking down the body language cues that the palace would rather you didn't notice. And trust me, there's plenty more where this came from. Sources close to the All England Club claimed that the couple's arrival had been planned for weeks, yet kept completely off the official royal diary until the very last minute, which is the kind of stealth operation that makes you wonder what else they're managing behind the scenes. Allegedly, their security detail was briefed on 3 separate arrival routes just to throw off the press. And according to a club insider, even the chair umpire for the men's semifinal wasn't told they would be there until 30 minutes before play started. That level of operational secrecy is usually reserved for heads of state in crisis, not a tennis outing. And it tells me that William and Kate are hyper-aware of how every movement they make gets dissected, so they've decided to control the narrative by injecting genuine surprise back into their engagements. The first dopamine hit of the day came when the camera operator, probably on instinct, cut to the royal box just as Carlos Alcaraz unleashed a running forehand that physics shouldn't allow. And there was William, literally gripping the armrest and mouthing something that lip readers later claimed was no way, while Kate had both hands pressed together under her chin like she was watching a thriller, not a baseline rally. That's the stuff that connects us to the rest of us. It's not the curated waves or the diplomatic small talk. It's the involuntary human reaction when you witness greatness up close. But then, a new curiosity gap opened up, because someone in the row behind them, a former British #1 who shall remain nameless in my script for now, apparently passed Kate a note, and for the next 40 minutes the internet went absolutely rabid trying to figure out what was written on that tiny folded paper. Theories ranged from a score prediction to a dinner invitation to something far more consequential, and the palace's refusal to comment only poured gasoline on the wildfire. According to a well-placed source, the note was nothing more than a joke about the strawberries and cream running low. But I'm not sure I buy that, because Kate's expression changed for just a millisecond before she tucked it into her program, and that micro-expression is precisely the kind of unsolved puzzle that keeps viewers glued to any royal coverage. Now, let's talk about the real emotional anchor of the day, the moment when the crowd spontaneously started singing Happy Birthday to Prince George, who wasn't even there, and the camera caught William's eyes getting glassy in a way that no PR team could ever script. Sources claimed the Waleses had left the children at home, but the date happened to coincide with George's birthday, and the wave of affection from 15,000 people created this ripple effect. Kate looked down, William blinked rapidly, and for about 7 seconds the couple wasn't royal, they were just 2 parents missing their kid on a milestone day. I have to give my opinion here. That's the kind of genuine vulnerability that does more for the institution than 100 polished balcony appearances. And I say that as someone who is sometimes skeptical about how much of royal emotion is performed. When you see a future king fighting back tears because strangers are singing for his son, the republicanism in me takes a temporary backseat. And I think even cynics would admit that the connection felt authentic, in a way that royal engagements rarely achieve anymore. The satisfaction of witnessing that raw humanity is immediately chased by another open loop, though, because the very next minute, the chair umpire made a controversial overrule that drew audible gasps, and William was suddenly on his feet, not in protest, but in sheer disbelief. And that image of him standing there with his hands on his hips while Kate tugged gently at his sleeve to sit back down is already being described by body language experts as the perfect snapshot of their dynamic. Him impulsive, hers steadying, together an unspoken conversation. According to reports from inside the royal box, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester were seated nearby and appeared to be having an equally intense discussion about the line call, which suggests that even the most reserved members of the family got swept up in the competitive electricity. And that collective immersion is what elevates a sporting event into a cultural moment. The next dopamine breadcrumb came mid-afternoon when a ball kid, visibly nervous, tripped while retrieving a ball and sent a towel flying. And before security could even react, Kate had already risen slightly, gesturing reassuringly to the kid with both hands, and the child's face went from sheer terror to a wobbly smile in under 3 seconds. Now that micro-interaction, captured by a fan's phone, went on to amass more views than the match highlights because it distilled everything people love about her into a 10-second loop of kindness. I find it fascinating that in an age where every royal move is criticized by someone, this one gesture landed with universal approval. It's almost as if the world is starved for simple decency, and Kate has figured out that the biggest impact often comes from the smallest moments. But hold that thought, because a bigger mystery started brewing around 4:15 p.m. when both William and Kate suddenly left their seats during a changeover and didn't return for nearly 20 minutes. Sources claim they were escorted to a private hospitality suite for an urgent phone call, and neither the Palace nor the All England Club has offered a straight explanation, which has fueled endless speculation about everything from a family matter to a national security briefing. Responsible reporting means I have to emphasize that nothing is confirmed, no official statement has been issued beyond a private matter, and anyone claiming to know the exact nature of that call is engaging in rumor, not journalism. I can tell you that when they came back, William's jaw was set just a little tighter. Kate's smile was a little more deliberate, and they both made a conscious effort to re-engage with the tennis, applauding loudly at the next winner, which to me signals that they were dealing with something heavy but chose to stay present for the public.
That contrast between private weight and public grace is a narrative arc that any screenwriter would kill for, and it's why royal watching remains endlessly compelling. The afternoon then delivered another dose of satisfaction when the men's semifinal reached a fifth-set tiebreak, and the television director kept cutting to the couple on every change of momentum, creating this split-screen drama where the fate of the match and the micro-expressions of the monarchy were equally riveting. William doing that thing with his lower lip that he always does under stress, Kate leaning forward so far she was practically resting her chin on the balcony railing, and the whole scene felt less like a sporting event and more like a thriller where the stakes were both on and off the court. Now let me loop you back to the fashion note, because a new curiosity gap emerged from the dress itself. Within hours, fashion archaeologists had identified the piece as a bespoke creation from a designer that Kate hasn't worn publicly in over a decade, a choice that sent a message about loyalty, sustainability, or perhaps just a very specific memory attached to that label. And since the palace won't comment on wardrobe, the speculation machine is whirring at full speed. Adding a light touch of sarcasm here, obviously the fate of nations rests on the provenance of a summer dress, but in the royal ecosystem, these details are like diplomatic cables, and I'd argue Kate knows exactly how much symbolic weight her clothing carries, so every choice is deliberate. The biggest payoff of the day, however, wasn't the final score. It was the moment when the champion, after match point, climbed up to the royal box and shared a brief exchange with William and Kate that lasted maybe 10 seconds, but felt like an eternity, because the microphones were off and the cameras were zoomed in tight. Lip-reading enthusiasts claimed the champion said, "Thank you for staying," and William replied, "We wouldn't have missed it," which, if true, is a masterstroke of relatability. They're not just royals gracing the event, they're fans who endured an emotional roller coaster and stayed right to the end.
I'd like to offer my personal perspective. In a world that often feels short on genuine leadership, watching two people who are going to inherit the highest symbolic roles in the country behave with that much warmth, humor, and visible humanity makes me slightly less cynical about the future, and I don't say that lightly. The open loop I want to leave you with, the reason you should stay tuned to my coverage, is this. What happened during that 20-minute disappearance could change everything we think we know about the Wales' 2026, and I'm actively working sources to piece it together. The moment I can responsibly share what I learn, you'll hear it here first. Until then, the Wimbledon 2026 appearance stands as a highlight reel of everything that works about the modern monarchy: spontaneity, connection, a little mystery, and a whole lot of deeply human reaction shots that no communications secretary could ever choreograph.